Elizabeth's hands trembled as she stared at the security monitor. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. On the grainy black and white screen, two figures moved through the palace gardens like shadows. One tall, one small, both unmistakable. Her breath caught in her throat. Charlotte and George, together, alone, the head of palace. Security had woken her 20 minutes ago with an urgent call, something she needed to see immediately. No details, just the tension in his voice that made her heart race even before she understood. Why, now she understood. The camera footage continued playing. Charlotte, only 9 years old, walked beside her older brother with purpose. Not the playful skip of a child sneaking cookies. This was different, deliberate, secret. George glanced over his shoulder, twice, checking, making sure no one followed. Elizabeth leaned closer to the screen. Her reflection stared back from the dark glass, pale and confused. 23 years she had worked at Kensington Palace. She had seen strange things. Royal tantrums. Midnight wanderings. Security breaches that made headlines, but never this. Never the children meeting in secret. In the dead of night, with such careful intention, if you're drawn into this mystery like Elizabeth was, hit that subscribe button now. Because what happens next will change everything she thought she knew about the royal family. The security chief, Martin, stood beside her desk, his jaw tight, his arms crossed. He had been with the family for 15 years. Nothing surprised him anymore, until tonight. "How long have they been doing this?" Elizabeth asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Martin tapped the keyboard. More footage appeared. Different dates. Different times? Always the same pattern. Charlotte and George. Always between 2 and 4 in the morning. Always heading to the same spot in the East Gardens. 3 weeks that we've caught on camera, Martin said. Could be longer. Elizabeth's mind raced. 3 weeks of secret meetings. 3 weeks of 2 children risking everything to meet when the world slept. Why? What could possibly drive them to such lengths? On screen, the children reached an old stone bench, hidden behind overgrown hedges. A place the gardeners had forgotten. A place the cameras barely reached. Charlotte sat first. George remained standing, looking around one more time. Then he reached into his jacket. He pulled out something small. A phone. Elizabeth's stomach dropped. Children their age weren't supposed to have unsupervised phones, especially not secret ones. The security protocols were clear. Everything monitored. Everything approved. This phone was different, hidden, forbidden. George handed it to Charlotte. She took it with both hands, like it was made of glass. Her face, even in the poor camera quality, showed something Elizabeth had never seen in the cheerful princess. Fear. Charlotte scrolled through something on the screen. Her small shoulders hunched forward. George sat beside her now, pointing at something, explaining, his expression serious beyond his years. What were they looking at? What could possibly be so important, so dangerous that these 2 children would risk everything? Martin's radio crackled. A security guard's voice, urgent. "Sir, we have movement in the East Wing." Someone's awake. Elizabeth's eyes snapped to the timestamp. 2:53 a.m. The children had been out there for 6 minutes. I was awake. Martin demanded into the radio. A pause. Static. Then, their mother. The blood drained from Elizabeth's face. If Catherine discovered the children gone, if she panicked, she raised the alarm before they understood what was happening, ... on the monitor, Charlotte suddenly stood. She grabbed George's arm. Even without sound, Elizabeth could see the panic. Something had spooked them. George snatched the phone back, shoved it in his jacket. They started running back toward the palace entrance, fast, desperate. But they weren't alone. Another figure appeared on the camera, emerging from the shadows near the garden wall, tall, moving deliberately. Following the children, Elizabeth's heart hammered against her ribs. "Martin," she whispered. "Who is that?" Martin lunged for the keyboard. His fingers flew across the keys, switching camera angles. Zooming in. The image pixelated, then sharpened slightly. The figure moved with practiced stealth, not running, not rushing, just maintaining steady distance behind the children hunting. "Get someone to the east entrance now," Elizabeth commanded, her voice steadier than she felt. 23 years of training kicked in. Protocol, protection, purpose. Martin barked orders into his radio. Within seconds, 2 guards confirmed they were moving to intercept, but the children were faster than expected. Already rounding the corner toward the service entrance they must have used to slip out, the figure following them stopped, melted back into shadows near the garden wall. "Gone. Rewind that," Elizabeth said. "I need to see their face." Martin scrubbed backward through the footage. The figure appeared again, stepping into frame. But they knew the cameras. Knew the angles? A hood obscured most of their features. Height suggested male. Build suggested strength and something else. Something that made Elizabeth's professional instincts scream. This person knew the palace grounds. Knew where the cameras were weakest. Knew the children's path. This was an inside job. "Pull up personnel records," Elizabeth said quietly. "Everyone who has garden access. Everyone who works night shifts." "Everyone," Art nodded. Already typing on the live feed, the children reached the service door. George pulled out a key card. Where had he gotten that? Those cards were tracked, logged, every entry recorded, unless someone gave it to him. The door opened. Charlotte glanced back once more, her young face tight with an emotion Elizabeth couldn't quite read. Then both children disappeared inside. Elizabeth checked her watch. 2:58 a.m. They had maybe 4 minutes before their mother discovered empty beds and raised hell. "I need to see what's on that phone," Elizabeth said. "If we confront them now—" "We don't confront anyone yet." Elizabeth stood, smoothing her uniform. "We watch. We document. We figure out what we're dealing with before we escalate." But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. 2 children meeting secretly in the night. A hidden phone. Someone following them. Every instinct told her this was bigger than a simple case of kids breaking rules. This was danger. Real danger. Martin pulled up the personnel files. Dozens of faces flickered across the screen. Gardeners, security staff, maintenance workers. All with garden access. All potential threats or potential helpers, Elizabeth said, pointing. Thomas Reed. Night gardener. Hired 6 months ago. Martin clicked the file. Thomas Reed, 42, formerly worked at 3 other estates. References checked. Background clear. Nothing suspicious. To clean, what's his schedule tonight? Elizabeth asked. Martin checked. Off duty. Hasn't been on the grounds for 2 days. Elizabeth's jaw clenched. Off duty, but possibly still on the grounds. Possibly the figure in the shadows. I want him brought in for questioning first thing in the morning, quietly. Her phone buzzed. A text from the guards at the east entrance. Both subjects secured in their rooms? No contact made. Mother still unaware. Relief flooded through her. Then, immediately drained away. Because this wasn't over. This was just beginning. Show me the oldest footage we have of them meeting, Elizabeth said. Martin pulled up files from 3 weeks prior. The first recorded meeting. Same location. Same time. But something different. 3 figures on camera. Elizabeth leaned forward. Charlotte and George? Yes. But someone else sat on that stone bench with them. Someone bigger. Older. Zoom in, she whispered. The image enlarged, grainy, dark, but just clear enough to make out. Features Elizabeth's world tilted. The third person was a teenage girl. Maybe 16 or 17. Dark hair, slim build, and completely unknown to palace records. Who is that? Martin breathed. But Elizabeth couldn't answer. Because she was staring at the girl's face. At the way Charlotte held her hand. At the way George leaned close to listen to her speak. At the way this mysterious teenager looked at both children with something like desperate affection. Asterisk. Or desperate need. The girl pointed at something off camera. George and Charlotte both turned to look. Even in the footage, their body language screamed trust. Complete trust. This girl wasn't a stranger to them. This was someone they knew, someone they cared about, someone important enough to risk everything for. Pull facial recognition, Elizabeth ordered. Check her against every database we have. Family connections, staff children, school friends, everything. Martin started the scan. The computer word, searching through thousands of images, millions of data points, the answer came back in seconds. No match found. This girl didn't exist in any palace database. Didn't exist in any security clearance file. Didn't exist anywhere in the official records of anyone connected to the royal family. Asterisk, she was a ghost. Elizabeth. Martin's voice had changed. Flat. Afraid. He pointed at the screen with a shaking finger. The Fu continued playing. The mysterious girl stood, hugged Charlotte, hugged George. Then she did something that made Elizabeth's blood run cold. She removed her jacket, handed it to Charlotte, and revealed her left arm, even through the grainy footage. The bruises were visible, dark, brutal, the kind that came from violence. Asterisk. The kind that came from someone hurting you over and over. Charlotte had started crying on the screen. George put his arm around the girl protectively. The girl said something, shook her head, forced a smile. Then she ran. Away from the children, away from the palace, into the night. George had tried to follow. Charlotte held him back, and Elizabeth understood. These children weren't breaking rules for fun. They weren't playing games. They were trying to save someone who was in terrible danger, someone who might not survive much longer without their help. Asterisk. Elizabeth's mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. An abused teenager, 2 royal children trying to help her. Secret meetings, hidden phones, someone following them. This wasn't just a security breach. This was a rescue mission, and it was going terribly wrong. We need to find that girl, Elizabeth said, her voice sharp, commanding. Now Martin was already working, pulling up exterior camera footage, tracking the girl's path away from the palace. She had known where the cameras were, just like the figure who followed the children later. She moved through blind spots with precision. She's good, Martin muttered. Too good for a teenager, unless someone taught her. Unless someone trained her to hide. The cameras caught glimpses. A shadow here, a flash of movement there. The girl headed east, toward the public gardens, toward the busy streets beyond where CCTV would lose her in the crowd. Smart, deliberate, desperate, last known position? Elizabeth asked. Exit gate near Bayswater Road. 12 minutes ago on the original footage. That was 3 weeks back. 3 weeks. The girl could be anywhere by now. Could be hurt. Could be dead. Elizabeth's phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach clench. Catherine, the children's mother, she answered. Kept her voice calm. Professional, Your Highness, Elizabeth. Catherine's voice was tight, controlled, the voice of someone holding back panic. I need you in my quarters. Now, don't tell anyone else. Just you. The line went dead. Elizabeth met Martin's eyes. He had heard enough. Go, he said. I'll keep digging on the girl. And on Thomas Reed. Elizabeth moved through the palace corridors like a ghost. Her mind spun through what she would say, how much she would reveal. Catherine was protective of her children. Fiercely so. This news could trigger a lockdown, a media storm, an investigation that might scare away the mysterious girl forever or get her killed. She reached Catherine's private quarters, knocked twice, soft, respectful. The door opened immediately. Catherine stood there in a robe, hair loose around her shoulders. But it was her face that stopped Elizabeth cold. She already knew. Come in, Catherine said quietly. We need to talk about George and Charlotte. Inside, the room was dim. One lamp burning. The air thick with tension. Catherine gestured to a chair. Elizabeth sat, waiting. Catherine didn't sit. She paced. 3 steps one way. 3 steps back. Finally, she stopped. Looked directly at Elizabeth. How long have you known? Elizabeth chose her words carefully. I was informed tonight. The security footage shows my children sneaking out at night. Catherine's voice cracked slightly. I know. I've known for a week. The admission hung between them. Heavy, dangerous. You've known? Elizabeth kept her voice neutral. With respect, Your Highness. Why wasn't security informed? Catherine's laugh was bitter. Small. Because my children asked me not to. Because they made me promise. Because they told me about her. The mysterious girl. Who is she? Elizabeth asked. Catherine finally sat, sank into the chair across from Elizabeth like the weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders. Her name is Sophie. She's 16. And she's George's half-sister. The words hit like a physical blow. Elizabeth's breath caught. Impossible. George's half-sister. That would mean... William doesn't know, Catherine said quickly. Reading Elizabeth's thoughts. No one knows. Except me. And now you. The room tilted. Spun. Elizabeth gripped the armrest. 23 years. 23 years of service. Of discretion. Of protecting royal secrets. But this was different. How? Elizabeth managed. Catherine's eyes glistened. Before William and I married, there was a woman. Brief. Meaningless according to him. She got pregnant. Disappeared before anyone knew. She never asked for money. Never contacted the family. Never told anyone who the father was. Until now. Till Sophie turned 16. Catherine wiped her eyes. She found out who her father was. Did one of those DNA ancestry tests. The results connected her to distant royal relatives. She put it together, and she contacted George. She found him on social media. A private account William doesn't know about. They started talking. George was curious, excited. He has a sister. A real sister he never knew about. Elizabeth's mind raced. The meetings. Charlotte knows? Charlotte found out by accident. Saw the messages. But instead of telling me, she wanted to protect George. To protect Sophie? They started meeting her in secret because they knew what would happen if the truth came out. Elizabeth knew too. Scandal, media frenzy, DNA tests, investigations, Sophie's life torn apart. Her mother exposed, the monarchy shaken to its core, and Sophie, 16 years old, caught in the middle of something she never asked for. The bruises, Elizabeth said softly. We saw them on the footage. Who's hurting her? Catherine's face hardened. Her mother's boyfriend. He found out about the royal connection. Wants money? Wants to sell the story. Sophie refuses. So he hurts her. The pieces fell into place. The secret phone. The desperate meetings. The children, trying to help their sister escape a nightmare. We have to help her, Elizabeth said. I know. Catherine stood again, resumed pacing. But if we go through official channels, if we involve police or social services, the story leaks. Sophie becomes a media circus, and William ... double quotes. She trailed off. I know. Catherine's voice broke. But not yet. Not until we have a plan. Not until we can protect Sophie and my children from the fallout. Elizabeth stood. Moved to Catherine's side. Your Highness, with respect, there's something else you need to know. Catherine looked at her, waiting. Someone is following the children. Someone was in the gardens tonight, watching them. We don't know who yet. The color drained from Catherine's face. Following them? Are you certain? The footage is clear. Whoever it is knows the palace grounds, knows the camera placements. This is someone with inside access. Catherine grabbed Elizabeth's arm. Her fingers dug in, desperate. Find whoever is threatening my children. I don't care what it takes. There's more, Elizabeth said gently. She pulled up the photo on her phone. The night gardener. Thomas Reed. This man. He was off duty tonight, but may have been on the grounds. We're bringing him in for questioning. Catherine stared at the photo. Her grip tightened. I know him. Elizabeth's heart stopped. You do? He approached me 3 days ago. Asked about private garden tours. I thought it was strange, but didn't think much of it. Catherine's voice dropped to a whisper. Elizabeth, what if he knows about Sophie? What if Thomas Reed wasn't just a night gardener? What if he was a reporter? A blackmailer? Someone sent by Sophie's mother's boyfriend to gather evidence. What if he was the one making everything worse? Elizabeth's radio crackled. Martin's voice. Urgent. Elizabeth, you need to see this now. Elizabeth ran through the corridors. Catherine close behind her. Protocol forgotten. Hierarchy abandoned. Two women united by one purpose. Protect the children. Martin stood in the security room, his face pale. Screen glowing behind him. You're not going to believe this. Elizabeth reached the monitor. Her breath caught. New footage. From tonight? A different camera angle they had missed before. The figure who had followed the children wasn't Thomas Reed. It was a woman, small, quick, moving with purpose through the gardens. The camera caught her face for just a second as she passed under a security light. Sophie, the mysterious half-sister, hadn't run away 3 weeks ago. She had been coming back. Every night. Watching, protecting, following her younger siblings to make sure they got back safely. She's been guarding them, Catherine whispered. This whole time. Elizabeth's mind reeled. The bruised teenage girl. The one George and Charlotte were trying to save. She was the one protecting them, not the other way around. Keep watching, Martin said grimly. The footage continued. Sophie followed at a distance as George and Charlotte reached the service door. She waited in the shadows, making sure they got inside safely. Then she turned, started back toward the garden wall, and ran straight into someone else. A man, big, grabbing her arm, violent. Sophie fought. Elizabeth could see it even in the grainy footage. The girl knew how to fight, how to defend herself. But the man was bigger, stronger. He grabbed her hair, yanked her back. Catherine gasped, covered her mouth. Sophie's knee came up. Connected hard. The man stumbled back. She broke free, ran, but he recovered fast. Pulled something from his jacket. Long metal, a crowbar. He chased her into the blind spot between cameras. For agonizing seconds, the screen showed only empty gardens. Dark hedges. Nothing. Then Sophie stumbled back into frame, hand pressed to her side. Dark stains spreading across her shirt. Blood. When was this? Elizabeth demanded. Martin's voice shook. Tonight? 45 minutes ago? Elizabeth caught her, held her up. We need to find her now. Martin was already coordinating. Guards deploying. Search patterns initiated. But 45 minutes was a lifetime. Sophie could have collapsed in the gardens, could have crawled away to hide, could be bleeding out somewhere while they watched old footage. Elizabeth's mind raced through procedures. Call an ambulance. Alert police. Standard protocol. But nothing about this was standard. Wait, Catherine said. Voice stronger now. Purpose, replacing shock. If we send police, if we send ambulances, questions get asked. Records get made. Sophie gets exposed. She needs medical attention, Elizabeth said firmly. She'll get it, but privately, discreetly. Catherine pulled out her phone, dialed a number Elizabeth didn't recognize. This is Catherine. I need Dr. Morrison. Personal emergency. Palace grounds. No records. Tell him to bring trauma supplies. It's Dr. Morrison, the royal family's private physician. The one who handled sensitive matters? Quietly, Catherine ended the call. Looked at Elizabeth. You and Martin find her. I'm going to wake the children. They might know where she would hide. Your Highness, those are my children out there trying to save their sister. I won't let them do it alone anymore. Catherine's voice carried steel now. The steel of a mother protecting her own. Find Sophie. Keep her alive. I'll handle the rest. She swept from the room. Elizabeth turned to Martin. Deploy everyone. Search the gardens. Check every hiding spot. And Martin, she grabbed his arm. The man who attacked her? We need to find him too. Already on it. Martin pulled up security footage from the main gates. He left through the north entrance 7 minutes after the attack. I'm running facial recognition now. The computer beeped. Match found. James Garrett. 47. Criminal record. Assault. Theft. Last known address in South London. Sophie's mother's boyfriend. He came here, Elizabeth said quietly. Came onto palace grounds to hurt her. Not just hurt. Martin enlarged the image. James Garrett's face showed cold determination. The face of a man with a plan. He came here to send a message. Stay quiet, or else. The radio crackled. A guard's voice. I've got something. East Gardens. Near the old greenhouse, Elizabeth ran. Martin beside her. Through corridors. Downstairs. Out into the cold night air. The gardens stretched before them. Dark. Vast. Full of hiding places. The guard waited near the greenhouse. Old stone structure. Glass long since broken. Forgotten by everyone. Everyone except someone who needed to hide. Elizabeth approached slowly. Sophie, my name is Elizabeth. I work for Catherine. We want to help you.
Alex.
I know about George and Charlotte. I know what you've been doing for them. I know you were hurt, please. Let us help. Sound. Soft. Pained. Coming from inside the greenhouse. Elizabeth entered carefully. Glass crunched under her feet. The air smelled of earth and decay. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness. There, in the corner, huddled behind an old potting bench, Sophie, 16 years old, dark hair matted with sweat, hand pressed to her side, blood seeping through her fingers, face pale as death. But her eyes were fierce, defiant, alive. Don't, Sophie whispered. Don't tell anyone, please. Elizabeth knelt beside her, gentle, calm. Sophie, you're bleeding. You need medical help. I need my brother and sister to be safe. Sophie's voice broke. That's all I need. They are safe. Because of you, you protected them. Tears streaked down Sophie's dirty face. He found out. James found out about the meetings. He followed me tonight. Said if I didn't get money from them, he'd hurt them. Hurt George and Charlotte. I couldn't let him. You fought him. You protected them. I tried, but he's coming back. He said he's coming back with others. Said he's going to sell photos to the press. Going to ruin everything unless I get him money? Elizabeth's jaw clenched. Over her dead body, Dr. Morrison arrived. Quiet, efficient. He assessed Sophie's wound quickly. Puncture wound. Missed vital organs. She's lucky. Doesn't feel lucky, Sophie whispered. The doctor worked. Cleaning, stitching. Sophie bit down on her sleeve to keep from crying out. Elizabeth held her hand, squeezed. Why didn't you tell the children how dangerous this was? Elizabeth asked softly. Sophie's laugh was bitter. Because they're 9 and 11? They shouldn't have to worry about things like this. They should get to be kids. You're 16. You should get to be a kid too. Stopped being a kid when my mom brought James home. Sophie's voice hardened. When he started hitting her, when he started hitting me, when he found out who my father was and saw dollar signs, Dr. Morrison finished, bandaged the wound. She needs rest, antibiotics, monitoring for infection. She needs to be somewhere safe, Elizabeth said. Sophie's eyes widened. No, I can't stay here. If James finds out, James Garrett is about to have a very bad night, Elizabeth said quietly. Trust me. Sophie studied her face, searching for truth, for safety, for hope. Finally, she nodded. Catherine appeared in the doorway. For a moment, she just stared at Sophie. At this girl who carried her husband's bloodline, this girl who had risked everything to protect children she barely knew. Then Catherine crossed the greenhouse, knelt beside Sophie, and pulled her into a gentle embrace. You're safe now, Catherine whispered. I promise. You're safe, Sophie broke. Sobs shaking her small frame. All the fear, all the pain, all the desperate courage finally cracking under the weight of someone offering kindness. Behind them, unnoticed in the doorway, two small figures appeared. George and Charlotte. Eyes wide, faces streaked with tears. They had found their sister. Catherine looked up, saw her children. Her expression shifted through a dozen emotions in seconds. Anger, relief, love, fear. George, Charlotte, back to your rooms now. George's voice, small but firm. 11 years old but sounding ancient. We're not leaving her. Charlotte ran forward, dropped to her knees beside Sophie, grabbed her hand. You're bleeding. You said you'd be careful. Sophie tried to smile. Failed. I was careful. He was just faster. Should have told us, George said. Moving closer now, his eyes red from crying. You should have told us he was dangerous. You're kids, Sophie whispered. My job is to protect you, not the other way around. You're our sister, Charlotte said fiercely. That means we protect each other. The words hung in the air. Heavy, true, impossible to take back. Catherine closed her eyes. This was the moment everything changed. Her children claiming this girl as family, making it real, making it permanent. When she opened her eyes again, Elizabeth saw the decision there, the acceptance. Whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, Catherine was going to protect Sophie, was going to protect all three children. Everyone back to the palace, Catherine said quietly. Dr. Morrison, Sophie stays in the guest suite in the private wing. No records, no staff. Just us, Your Highness, Elizabeth started. We need to inform no one. Catherine's voice carried absolute authority. Not yet. First we get Sophie stable. First, we deal with James Garrett. Then we figure out the rest. They moved through the dark gardens like ghosts. Sophie leaning on George and Charlotte, both children supporting their sister. Catherine walking ahead, clearing the path. Elizabeth and Martin flanking, protecting inside the palace. The private wing stood silent, safe, separate from the official residence. Sophie was settled into a bedroom, soft bed, clean sheets. Everything foreign to a girl who had been sleeping in abandoned buildings and dodging violence. Charlotte refused to leave her side. Curled up next to Sophie like a small guardian, George sat in a chair nearby, watching, waiting, ready to fight dragons if they appeared. Catherine pulled Elizabeth aside. Tell me about James Garrett. Everything. They moved to an adjacent room. Elizabeth laid out the facts. The criminal record. The violence. The plan to extort money from the royal family. The threat to expose Sophie and destroy everything. He has to be stopped, Catherine said. Permanently. We have him on assault. Trespassing on palace grounds. That's enough to arrest him. Arrest leads to questions. Questions lead to investigation. Investigation leads to Sophie's identity being exposed. Catherine shook her head. We need something else. Elizabeth understood. They needed leverage. Something that would make James Garrett disappear quietly. Something that would protect Sophie's secret while keeping the children safe. Martin appeared in the doorway. I've been digging into Garrett's background. You need to see this. He pulled up files on his tablet. James Garrett's criminal past was worse than they thought. Outstanding warrants in 2 counties. Suspected involvement in a robbery that turned violent. A witness who disappeared before testifying. He's wanted, Martin said. Seriously wanted? If we tip off the police about his location, they'll pick him up on the existing warrants. Nothing to do with the palace. Nothing to do with Sophie. Elizabeth felt the pieces clicking into place. We make an anonymous call. Say he was spotted in South London. His last known address, they arrest him on the warrants. He goes away for years. Asterisk. And while he's locked up, we make sure his case gets every bit of scrutiny it deserves, Catherine added. Every charge. Every violation. By the time we're done, he won't see daylight for a decade. It wasn't entirely clean, but it was justice. It was protection. It was the best option they had. Do it, Catherine said to Martin. Make the call. Anonymous tip. Tonight. Martin nodded. Left to coordinate, Elizabeth studied Catherine. Your Highness, eventually William has to know. Sophie's his daughter. The children need their father to asterisk. I know. Catherine's voice cracked. I know what I have to tell him. I know what it will do to our family. But right now, tonight, I need to focus on keeping all 3 children safe. A sound from the bedroom. Charlotte crying out. Both women rushed inside. Sophie was sitting up, pale, sweating, clutching her side, the pain breaking through the medication. Dr. Morrison was there immediately, checking vitals, adjusting medication. The wound is clean, but she's experiencing trauma response. Her body's been under extreme stress for too long. Charlotte held Sophie's hand, tears streaming. Don't die. Please don't die. We just found you. Not planning on it, Sophie managed, voice strained, too stubborn. George stood, walked to the window, stared out at the dark gardens. Elizabeth saw his shoulders shaking. This boy, 11 years old, carrying the weight of protecting a sister he barely knew, carrying secrets that would change his family forever. She moved beside him, quiet, respectful of his space. I thought I could save her, George whispered. I thought if Charlotte and I met with her, if we gave her money, if we helped her run away, she'd be okay. You did save her, Elizabeth said gently. She's here. She's alive, 'cause you cared enough to try. But I didn't tell Mom. I kept secrets. I put Charlotte in danger. You did what you thought was right. That takes courage. Takes stupidity, George said bitterly. I'm 11. What did I think I could do against someone like James Garrett? He did more than most adults would. Elizabeth put a hand on his shoulder. She saw someone suffering, and you tried to help. That's not stupidity. That's honor. George turned, looked up at her, his eyes old beyond his years. What happens now? Sophie can't stay hidden forever. Eventually everyone will find out who she is, what she is to us. Elizabeth didn't have an answer, because he was right. The truth always came out, always found the light. The only question was how much damage it caused on the way. Now we focus on keeping all of you safe, Elizabeth said. The rest we'll figure out together, Martin returned. His expression confirmed it. Call made. Anonymous tip about James Garrett's location. Police are moving in now. Within the hour, confirmation came through unofficial channels. James Garrett arrested. Multiple outstanding warrants, resisting arrest, additional charges added. He would be locked up for a long time. Sophie heard the news and collapsed back against the pillows. Relief flooding through her, the immediate danger passed. The monster temporarily caged. But they all knew this was just the beginning. Catherine gathered everyone in the sitting room. Sophie propped up with pillows. George and Charlotte on either side. Dr. Morrison monitoring quietly. Elizabeth and Martin standing guard. Here's what happens now, Catherine said. Her voice calm, commanding. Sophie stays here, in the palace. Under my protection, we tell staff she's a distant cousin visiting. No one questions it. No one investigates. For how long? Sophie asked. Until we figure out a permanent solution. Until we can ensure you're safe? Until Catherine paused. Till I tell William the truth? The words settled heavy. George and Charlotte exchanged glances. They understood the magnitude. Their father finding out about Sophie, the questions, the hurt, the complications. When? George asked quietly. Soon, Catherine promised. But not tonight. Tonight we've all been through enough. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to do this. Any of this. I never wanted to disrupt your family. I just wanted to know my brother, to know where I came from. You are family, Charlotte said firmly. You're our sister. That means you belong here. Your Highness, Elizabeth interjected carefully. There's still the matter of Sophie's mother. She'll be looking for her, wondering where she went. Sophie's face hardened. My mother chose James over me. When I told her he was hurting me, she didn't believe me. When I told her he wanted to sell my story, she said I was being dramatic. She stopped being my mother a long time ago. We still need to handle the situation, Catherine said. Elizabeth, work with Martin. Find Sophie's mother. Sure, she understands her daughter is safe, but also make clear that any attempt to contact the press, to sell information, will result in consequences. Elizabeth nodded, understanding the unspoken threat. The full weight of the royal family's resources standing between Sophie and anyone who would harm her. Everyone rest, Catherine ordered. It's almost dawn. We've all earned a few hours of peace. But as the children settled, as Dr. Morrison checked Sophie one more time, as the palace slowly breathed with the approaching morning, Elizabeth stood at the window, watching the gardens where everything had changed, where two children had tried to save their sister, where a teenage girl had fought to protect the siblings she barely knew, where secrets came crashing into light whether anyone was ready or not. And she knew this was far from over. 3 days passed. 3 days of careful watching, quiet protection. Sophie healing in the private wing while the palace moved around, or like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Elizabeth saw it in the way Catherine moved through her duties, distracted, carrying a burden that grew heavier each day. The weight of truth, waiting to be spoken. She saw it in George and Charlotte, the way they slipped away whenever possible to check on their sister, the way they had become guardians instead of children, grown up too fast. And she saw it in Sophie, physically healing, but emotionally preparing for the storm she knew was coming. The day William would be told. The day her existence would shatter, whatever illusions remained. On the 4th morning, Catherine summoned Elizabeth to her private office. The room felt different, emptier, like something vital had been stripped away. Today, Catherine said simply, I'm telling William today. Elizabeth had prepared for this moment. I can arrange for the children to be elsewhere, keep them occupied. No. Catherine shook her head. They stay. They're part of this. They chose to protect Sophie. They deserve to be there when their father learns the truth, Your Highness. With respect, this could be explosive. William's reaction will be what it is. Catherine stood, smoothed her dress, gesture Elizabeth recognized. Preparation for battle. I've spent 3 days rehearsing what to say, how to explain. But there's no good way to tell your husband he has a daughter he never knew about. There's no right words for this. Elizabeth's phone buzzed. Martin. Message brief. Sophie's mother contacted a tabloid. It's asking questions about her daughter's whereabouts. We intercepted, handled quietly. But the clock is ticking. She showed Catherine the message. Catherine's jaw tightened. Then we move now, before the media catches wind, before we lose control of the narrative. The family gathered in the private sitting room. William had just returned from an official engagement. Still in his suit. Still in public mode, and aware that his world was about to break open, he saw the faces. Catherine, George, Charlotte, Sophie, in a wheelchair, still too injured to stand for long. Elizabeth and Dr. Morrison in the background, official witnesses to an unofficial moment. What's going on? William asked, his tone already defensive. Already sensing danger, Catherine took his hand, led him to a chair. Sit, please. He sat, eyes moving from face to face, landing on Sophie, studying her. Not recognizing her, but sensing something familiar. Something that tugged at instincts he didn't understand yet. Who is this? He asked. Sophie met his eyes, brave, terrified. 16 years old, facing the father who never knew she existed. My name is Sophie, she said quietly. And I think I'm your daughter. The words hung there, suspended in the terrible silence. William's face went blank. Complete shutdown. The mind protecting itself from information it couldn't process. That's impossible. Is it Catherine's voice soft? Not accusing, just asking. Before we married? Before we were engaged? Was there anyone? William's eyes darted to her, to the children, back to Sophie. I don't. Her mother's name is Rebecca Shaw, Catherine continued. Gentle, relentless. You dated briefly. She got pregnant. Left before telling you. Raised Sophie alone, until James Garrett found out who I was, Sophie finished. Until he decided I was worth money. Until everything became dangerous. William stood, paced, his hands shaking. This is insane. You can't just show up and claim to be, I have DNA results, Sophie said. Pulled a paper from her pocket with trembling hands. I did an ancestry test. It connected me to distant relatives. Royal relatives. I can do another test. A paternity test. I'll prove it. This is some kind of scam. William's voice rose. Some elaborate con to Dad. George stood. Moved between William and Sophie. It's not a con. We've known her for weeks. Charlotte and I, we met with her. We talked to her. We know she's telling the truth. William stared at his son. You knew? You've been sneaking around behind my back? We were trying to protect her. Charlotte joined her brother. United front. James was hurting her. She needed help. We wanted to save her. The pieces were falling into place behind William's eyes. The secret meetings. The hidden phone. His children risking everything. Not for a scam. Not for money. But for family. He sank back into the chair. Face in his hands. This can't be happening. I didn't want to disrupt your life, Sophie said, her voice breaking. I just wanted to know where I came from, who my father was. I didn't expect George to find me. Didn't expect him and Charlotte to care. I tried to stay away, to keep my distance, but they wouldn't let me. They kept trying to help. 'Cause she's our sister, George said firmly. And she was in danger. Real danger. William looked up, saw the bandage visible under Sophie's shirt. What happened to you? James Garrett attacked her on palace grounds, Catherine said. 4 days ago. He was trying to force her to extort money from us. She refused. Fought him. Protected our children even while bleeding. William's face changed, the shock giving way to something else. Protectiveness. Instinct. He hurt you. I'm okay, Sophie said. He's in jail now. Multiple warrants. He won't be getting out anytime soon. Hurtma Williams stopped, the word catching in his throat. Daughter. He couldn't say it. Not yet. Not until he knew for certain. But Elizabeth saw the shift. The moment the possibility became real to him. This girl might be his child. This brave, battered teenager might carry his blood. I want a DNA test, William said finally. Immediately. Official. Documented. Of course, Sophie agreed. I understand. Dr. Morrison stepped forward. I can coordinate that, discreetly. We'll have results in 48 hours. William nodded. Still in shock? Still processing. He looked at Catherine. You knew? For 3 days, Catherine admitted. The children told me everything. I wanted to tell you immediately. But first we had to get Sophie safe. Had to deal with James Garrett. Had to protect our children. From what? From me? From the consequences. Catherine moved closer. Took his hand. This is going to explode. When the truth comes out, and it will come out, the media will be relentless. Sophie's life will become public property. Our family will be scrutinized. Everything will change. Everything's already changed, William said bitterly. The moment she walked into our lives. Sophie flinched, the words hitting like physical blows. Elizabeth saw her preparing to leave, to run, to protect these people from the damage she caused just by existing. Charlotte saw it too. Grabbed Sophie's hand. Don't go. Please don't go. Your father doesn't want me here, Sophie whispered. I shouldn't have come. I didn't say that. Out. William's voice softer now. I said everything changed. I didn't say it was your fault. He stood. Approached Sophie slowly. Studied her face. Elizabeth watched him searching for recognition. For proof. 4 pieces of himself in this stranger's features. You have my mother's eyes, William said quietly. Diana's eyes. Sophie's breath hitched. Really? And her stubbornness, apparently. Fighting a grown man to protect children you barely know. That's something she would have done. Tears spilled down Sophie's face. I didn't know her. My mom never talked about your family. I only know what I've read online. The test confirms what I think it will, William said carefully. If you're really my daughter, then we'll make sure you know everything about her, about our family, about where you come from. And if the test says I'm not, Sophie asked, voice small, scared, then we still owe you for protecting George and Charlotte. William glanced at his children, at their determined faces, and I suspect these two won't let you disappear regardless of what any test says. George nodded. Charlotte squeezed Sophie's hand tighter. Catherine exhaled, the first breath that sounded like relief in days. We have 48 hours before we know for certain. In that time, we need a plan. For every possible outcome. Every outcome ends with Sophie protected, George said. Not a question. A statement. Every outcome ends with all of you protected, William corrected. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. He looked at Catherine. What I failed to do, because I didn't know, because I never thought to look for someone I didn't know existed. Couldn't have known, Sophie said. My mother never told anyone. She wanted to protect me from all of this. From the scrutiny, from being royal adjacent. She thought she was doing the right thing. Maybe she was, Catherine said quietly. Maybe you got 16 years of normal life before everything went sideways. That's more than most royal children get. The truth of that settled over George and Charlotte. Their lives mapped out from birth. Every moment documented. Every choice scrutinized. They looked at Sophie with new understanding. She had been free, until she wasn't. Elizabeth's phone buzzed again. Martin. The message made her blood run cold. She showed it to Catherine. Rebecca Shaw just filed a missing persons report for Sophie. Claims her daughter was kidnapped by persons unknown. Press is starting to ask questions. Catherine stood. Then, we move faster than planned. Elizabeth, coordinate with Martin. I want a statement prepared. Something vague, but truthful. A young woman injured on palace grounds, taken in for medical care, being returned to family once healthy. No names. No details. And when they start digging, Elizabeth asked, let them dig. By the time they find anything concrete, we'll be ready. Catherine looked at William. We'll face this together. As a family, William nodded. Still shell-shocked. Still processing. But accepting. I need to speak with Sophie. Alone. The room cleared slowly. George and Charlotte reluctant to leave. Catherine herding them out with gentle firmness. Elizabeth and Dr. Morrison following, giving father and possible daughter privacy for what came next. In the hallway, Charlotte grabbed Elizabeth's hand. She's going to be okay, right? They'll let her stay? Elizabeth looked down at this brave 9-year-old who had risked everything for a sister she barely knew. If there's any justice in the world, yes, she'll stay. She'll be safe. You both made sure of that. You just did what was right, George said quietly. That's all any of us can ever do, Elizabeth replied. Inside the sitting room, William and Sophie faced each other. Two people connected by blood, possibly. By circumstance, definitely. By the courage of two children who refused to look away from someone suffering. Whatever William said, whatever Sophie answered, it stayed between them. Private. Sacred. The beginning of something that would reshape a family, or the careful closure of a door that could never fully open. Either way, Elizabeth knew she had witnessed something extraordinary. Two royal children who looked past protocol and privilege to see someone who needed help, and gave it. Without hesitation, without permission, with nothing but pure conviction that saving a life mattered more than following rules. As dawn broke over the palace gardens, Elizabeth stood at the window where this had all begun, where she had first seen those secret meetings, those desperate attempts to help. She thought of Sophie, bruised but healing, scared but standing. She thought of George and Charlotte, changed forever by choosing courage over comfort. And she thought of all the secrets palaces held, all the hidden truths waiting for light. Some destroyed families. Some saved them. This one might do both before it was done. But for now, in this moment, a teenage girl was safe. Two children had their sister. And a family was learning that sometimes the greatest threat to tradition was simply doing what was right. The gardens stretched out before her. Soon, gardeners would arrive. Tourists would press against gates. Life would continue as it always did around the palace walls. But inside those walls, everything had changed, and Elizabeth suspected nothing would ever be quite the same again.